Hello, it's Greg Grizzly and Guide. We're back. We hope you're having a happy day wherever you're listening to this audio content from. As always, we'd like to thank you for your continued support of Greg Grizzly and Guide and social media and writing efforts. Thank you. This is episode 053 of the Greg Grizzly and Guide, and definitely not a podcast show. A light and fluffy look at social media, Japan, Japanese food, expat life, and life in general. As always, your retweets of this and all the wonderful content that we actively tweet and retweet out on Craig Hoffman 11 on Twitter is appreciated. Thank you in advance for helping us get the good word out about Greg Grizzly and Guide. Welcome back. Another good show today. Should foreign English teachers in Japan do and be more at their schools and in their private companies as English teachers? We're talking about going above and beyond. And this comes about as I was on Twitter and I was perusing down my feed and I saw a rather active tweet commenting that it's a job, and foreigners, especially when they're paid by the government, should do and be more for their schools and companies than I guess the person felt that foreigner English teachers generally are here. And I said, I don't know that any other assistant language teacher, foreign English teacher, has much of a right to criticize or comment about whether another foreign English teacher should be doing more or less than they are at their company. I felt it was a bit out of their pay grade, and it was kind of, I commented, a waste of time. And while I understand that people have frustration because maybe they're giving a full effort and their coworkers and other people in their community are not giving, quote, the same effort, it is frustrating, and I've experienced that over the years. But the reality is, if a school and a company is willing to pay a foreign English teacher's salary for the month or the year, clearly the foreign English teacher has done, quote, enough, end quote, to get the salary. And if they don't, they generally are not recontracted or they're not paid and they are let go. And that does happen here. Over the years, as I've taught English here and I've encountered a lot of foreigners, two things have happened. The level of foreigner teaching English who has come here has decreased, both in terms of education and enthusiasm for teaching, and that's unfortunate but expected as economies in many countries have bounced back. It's just easier to stay in your home country and get a job. I know in my hometown area, I don't recommend anyone come to Japan to, quote, teach English, end quote, because you can get a job in the town making 2 or 3 times what you can make here as an English teacher and work far less. The other thing that has happened is the quality of jobs that are being generally offered are not as good. There are multiple schools that it requires a lot more commuting, a lot of walking, a lot of biking. Also, the overall salaries have decreased. And now you've got people who maybe 10 or more years ago saved a lot of money and lived well in Japan, now are scraping by month to month to, quote, experience, end quote, living in Japan. And so, of course, that affects motivation for working. And I often comment that a lot of English teaching in Japan is fast food English. The students come in, you give a little presentation, you throw up some cards, you give a little homework, a little writing practice, you mark an attendance card, and you send them on their way, followed by the next group. And you do that day after day after day, season after season after season, and in a system where basically it's year-round school, and the grind gets people. So now you have little money, you have a job that's rather mundane and not particularly interesting, and you have a Japanese cultural pressure of doing and going above and beyond, especially for free. And that's not just in English teaching, that's in many Japanese companies where there's a lot of pressure from coworkers and management to do and be more, especially off the clock, for the, quote, good, end quote, of the company. And that gets frustrating. Now, if you're making money and your life is rather stable here, you're probably pretty happy to do more for your company. In my particular case, I work for a good company. I have people who depend on me making maximum money. So when my company requests me to go above and beyond my written contract, I almost without fail say yes. But if I was 22, single and on my own, and my company was finding ways to, quote, screw me, end quote, especially in terms of salary, vacation, pension, taxes, or even health insurance, which does happen, perhaps even I, as a super, super, super motivated person, would not be as apt to go above and beyond and do more. Especially when I would realize, and this is, I think, what happens to a lot of foreign English teachers, they realize that doing the minimum pays as much as doing the maximum. And that's a hard lesson for some foreigners to learn. And it's also a hard lesson for some foreigners to accept, that you don't have to go full on gas pedal to the floor each and every moment of every day of every class that you're teaching, or in every school that you are working at. You can slide through, teach what you're supposed to teach, fill out what you're supposed to fill out, come and go when you're supposed to go, and nobody really cares. And sometimes it's counterproductive to go above and beyond, because when you start doing more and more and more and more without ever setting a line for yourself, some schools, English teachers, and private companies take advantage of your generosity and your penchant for going above and beyond. It's okay to say no if you really want to say no, and you are prepared to deal with the consequences, whether that's contractually, with your school, with your teachers, or with your management that exists within your company. If you're okay with that, say no. But know, as the saying goes, where your biscuits are buttered. And I know in my personal experience when I can say no and when I cannot. And that's the way it goes. But I don't begrudge anyone for not teaching English and not being a super, super, super Genki ALT 1 million miles an hour 6-7 days a week with no respite and no compensation. I get it. I do. And again, in a perfect world, the schools and the companies would pay a good wage and provide security and pensions and health insurance and assistance to foreigners, and the foreigners would be willing to go above and beyond for the good of the students and in an effort to really make a difference in the lives of people. And everyone would be happy. But that's just not reality. And I've worked with foreigners over the years who were very much like me, who put a full effort into things, and events and classes and courses that we did together were huge, huge, huge successes. And I've worked with foreigners who did as expected, and those courses went by without any problems. And yes, I've worked with foreigners over the years who did nothing to help and aid in any process or any responsibility that I was a part of. And I could have gotten angry. I could have gone to people and said, hey, this jerk isn't doing anything. They didn't do anything. But the reality was, most of the people I was working for didn't care how the work got done as long as the work got done, and I did the work alone by myself, and those events and courses and classes went along without a problem. And so, as I said on Twitter when I commented again, I focused not on what other foreigners were or were not doing as English teachers in Japan. I focused on what I was doing, and I focused on giving a full effort because it was important to me to be remembered in the best light possible in my time, especially when I was first here as an assistant language teacher. So while I understand it's quite easy to throw folks under a bus for not being the hardest of workers, personally, I don't bother to drive the bus because, one, I have better things to do. Two, I should focus on my life and my work. And three, it wouldn't make any difference, even if I was angry or aggressive towards such foreigners. People are going to be and do, especially when they live abroad in a fishbowl like Japan, do and say and act and work however they feel like it. And it's just counterproductive to keep prodding and prodding and prodding and prodding such people in the hopes that they're going to wake up tomorrow, the sun will rise, and they will be some amazingly hard-working employee. That's just not reality. So when I see such tweets, I just think that people should relax, take a step back, and focus on what they control. And that's their work, their positive attitude, and their life. That's it, and have a great, great day.